This is the European edition of Breaking Banks, the world's #1 fintech podcast and radio show. We bring you the European unicorns, startups, founders, regulators, and leaders innovating the rapidly evolving fintech scene today. A truly localized podcast with both English and local language content, with some of the world's most well-known hosts and influencers in the fintech sector globally. Join us every week as we explore what makes the European Union a phenomenal proving ground for many of the fastest growing fintech players in the world today. Okay, let's roll.
Welcome to Breaking Banks Europe, the #1 global fintech radio network. This is episode 251, and today's topic is how fintech can help miners to mine more safely and obtain a more stable income. So I have John Lombello with me. He's the founder and CEO of Tshwane Technologies. He's also a serial entrepreneur, and with Exalio, he offers innovative financial solutions in emerging markets, emphasizing transparency and ethical sourcing in mining operations. So, John, welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Liz, thank you very much. It is my pleasure to be here on this podcast, and I look forward to have a conversation.
I'm looking forward to it too. And as you know, I've got lots of questions.
Absolutely.
So the first one is if you can let us know how Exalio helps miners to have safer mining practices for them, but also for the environment. And how does it help them have better living conditions and obtain a more stable income?
Well, thank you very much, Liz. And first of all, this is a well-known question around Africa and many other nations where there's a prominent activity in the mining space. One thing you need to know is that small-scale miners face dangerous working conditions and have bad economic stability. They're also using practices that are completely harmful to them by using chemicals such as mercury that also degrade the environment. And for that reason, Liz, we decided to embark on a mission to help change that. And one of our solutions is ultimately to empower these miners' working conditions, but ultimately to give them access directly to global market, eliminating the need for intermediaries that often steal away from their living wages, so they can get access to better percentages and better price discovery.
And what kind of better percentages can you give them access to?
Look, this must surprise you, but we're looking at around 20% of, this is really the bottom line, of the extracted underlying commodity. And that will certainly improve what they earn today, considering that people, even in the far reach of these villages, have access to the internet and they're able to check live prices as well. They just like access to global markets.
That makes sense. So how are you going to make it possible for them?
One of the reasons we're able to do that is through the abundance of off-taking agreements that we have. And right now, for example, we have signed an 80-year long contract with some partners out of Dubai. These people are able to purchase these commodities at the spot price, giving us the ability to share as much as possible with these rural community miners that ultimately are working extremely hard for us to get access to the commodities that we're using today.
And why are you particularly the one that's going to solve this problem, help them have better conditions, not only healthy conditions, but also wage-wise, the sustainable income that's fairer?
First of all, I'm a tech guy. But also somebody who is deeply rooted in the financial space. And 12 years ago, I embarked on a journey when I was kind of helping out a friend of mine and an Italian buyer who was looking to acquire gold and cobalt, specifically out of the DRC and later on from Zambia. So when I started looking into this space, I understood how extremely difficult it was for one miner to be able to extract 1 gram of gold. When I saw this, then I knew that this community definitely needed to have access to better ways of doing this. So I saw people using shovels and their hands to be able to process gold manually.
It's crazy.
I was completely shocked, Liz. This is not how it happens today in the modern world. However, I knew that there was a better way for me to be able to do this, to provide them with better equipment, and also to train them to understand better mining practices, avoiding the use of mercury, which is, by the way, completely very bad for the health, but also contribute to the degradation of the environment. So I made it a personal mission 10 years ago. I made it a personal mission to ultimately find better ways to do this, improving their living condition, giving them access to better wages, and providing them with a market. In fact, we are the market to them, right? We are the market through our off-takers. And that is the mission that Axalio is on today. And by the way, Axalio stands for African Exchange and Liberal Investment Opportunity. So we want to be able to provide a free marketplace that would allow these people to have access to better opportunities that the world has to offer today.
And what exactly do you do to, change all of this for them?
Well, first of all, it's very important to understand one thing. We need to be able to go on and identify these mining sites across East Africa. And this is, by the way, one of the early stage work of Axalio. We need to go out there, do all the hard work, identification of these mining sites, pinpointing exactly where the better opportunities are for us to be able to extract the minerals, understand how deep these mineral activities are, and what these minerals are actually, by the way. We're using certain technology to making that happen, giving us 97% or more accuracy for us to be able to provide better responses as to where do we need to do the mining, where there is better mining concentration, in this case, for example, gold, so we can respond to the global demand.
And like these 97% accuracy, didn't you tell me before that right now they're just guessing, so they have no idea?
Absolutely. And that's one of there is a ritual around traditional mining that these guys have inherited from their ancestors and great grandparents. And they've transferred that knowledge all the way through to the younger generation that we see today. But with modern society and technology that we use, there's ultimately better ways of doing that. And technology can help us to do that. And that's the reason why, as we identify, we're educating these people about the importance of being able to move away from traditional ways of doing things. In fact, they can actually combine traditional and modern technology so that it can improve the potential of better extraction and improve the production yield. That is the journey that we are embarking on. And we need to be able to educate them about this technology, about financial markets as well. And that takes some time. It takes patience. It takes some time. It takes dedication.
So certainly let's touch on the financing aspect of it, because obviously people who are using shovels in their hands are doing that because they don't have access to, financing. How are you able to change that access to financing for them?
So ultimately, one thing we're doing here is we are building a framework to reduce the risks associated with having to invest in the mining sector. Traditionally, and this is really across the board, especially in Africa, financial institutions such as commercial banks shy away from having to invest directly into the mining co-ops because of the risky nature of these activities. But however, think about this, they are happy to invest in the majors, the large-scale mining operations, typically infected by the Western communities, the Canadians, the Chinese companies, Australian. These are the majors, right? These are the majors who, by the way, know how to raise funding globally in the international market. But the 80% that represent the mining co-ops and these low guys don't have the financial knowledge and the IQ to make that happen. So what Axalio has embarked on is to build frameworks that will help us to completely de-risk that entire process, making them viable to be able to attract funding from international investors and or even buyers. That is the work that Axalio is busy building, combining technology and financial knowledge. And we are presenting these financial institutions, such as banks or any other investor, with the better opportunities, giving to these guys access to those investments. And that's the way we are actually solving that particular problem as well.
So did I understand like banks need to see like offtake agreements and, that there's a co-op that's willing to extract it already and that there's a supplier who actually has the equipment and all those kinds of things?
Absolutely. In fact, one of my country director in the DRC worked on a framework and that he showcased to two of the local banks. That would be Equity Bank and EcoBank. EcoBank is a Pan-African bank that is present in over 36 countries. And the training that was given to them is to understand the importance there is to be able to invest heavily in equipment and training and financial education to those particular communities because of the prominent nature of this particular market and how the DRC alone, for example, is the solution to almost every type of commodity around the world. And what these financial institutions were looking for were three of the major things. For example, do we have an existing off-taking agreement with a larger buyer of these commodities around the world? Well, guess what? We ticked that box already because we already had one of those partners. Number two, do we have relationships with these supplier equipment providers? Well, guess what? We have quite a number of them around the world, particularly in Asia, for example, in countries like China and India, but also in Western world as well. And ultimately, have we identified some of these cooperatives that are willing to do things legally? Legally is the key word here, legally, so that they can contribute in paying for the local taxes, contributing to the stimulating the local economies, but also they will be seen as people who are willing to embark on government economic development as well. Those are the things that form the fundamental layer that these financial institutions are looking for. And once that is done, they will be able to throw in millions of dollars in developing these communities that desperately are looking for access to funding out there.
So I think you gave us a little bit of a hint of where you're starting, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Where in Africa are you starting and why?
Well, look, as much as this is an issue that we're doing in Africa, this is a global phenomena, right? And in Africa, of course, there are prominent countries like Ghana, DRC, and whatnot, but we have, pretty much all nations in Africa where there is active mining community, this is actually needed, including Latin America and or in some other part of Southeast Asia. But for us at Exalio, we decided to embark on three nations right now, of which the DRC, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, because of its abundant potential in critical minerals and precious metal. In fact, by the way, there is over 1,100 different types of minerals that are out of this country alone. And Ghana is the second country for us. But why Ghana? Because Ghana has shown that there was this leadership ability to formalize the mining co-ops activity. And there, by the way, last year, Ghana alone was able to extract or export over $123 billion in gold export alone from artisanal mining activity. That's an amazing, mind-boggling
That is
number.
amazing. That is.
Absolutely. And then lastly, we're looking into Guinea-Conakry as well because of its rich potential in gold. But you know what? We are going to expand in other countries in Africa as well as other regions in the future.
My head's still spinning from, was it 123 million last year alone?
$1 billion, not million. You're understating that
billion.
number.
That's right, billion.
Exactly.
That's what it was, billion. Hello. Yeah, because it was mind-boggling. So in order for you to get started in, Ghana or DRC, et cetera, what is it that you need?
Well, ultimately, funding has always been an entrepreneur's journey or any company's actually goal out there. And really for us, securing funding and attracting investors is a critical aspect of our growth strategy. We have actively pursued a balanced approach, combining bootstrapping with strategic funding, both from ourselves, but also from our close business partners and our collective networks to fuel our operations and scale. Our engagement with investors is focused on demonstrating the solid potential for higher returns due to our innovative solution in precious metals and our strategic partnerships that leverage local insights and in-nation networks. Those really put us at the forefront of why it is important to secure funding with the right investors so we can actually achieve our goals at scale. So
can you tell me a little bit first about the partnerships, and then I'm going to go to the exact amount of the funding?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, look, we in this partnership, just like I've alluded to earlier on, we've been able to secure deals in Dubai and also some of these co-ops in the DRC. For example, we've just recently entered into a very exciting joint venture with a family that owns over 74 hectares of mineral-rich land valued at over $700 million in potential extraction. Well, look, 74 hectares of land, this is probably the size of Belgium right now. But during this period as well, we've continued to refine our due diligence processes and enhance our engagement protocols with various stakeholders, all the while remaining fully bootstrapped. These relationships, Lise, are what we need to be able to succeed by the time we secure the funding so we can actually accelerate our growth into the execution of our strategy on the ground.
Okay, so, you know, these opportunities really seem big, and it would be a wonderful opportunity for first-time investors to get in now, since you've been bootstrapping. Where do you expect your revenue to be, like, by next year?
Well, look, we've taken some very conservative numbers, and because of our business model and also how aggressive we are in being able to achieve our target and probably even exceed that, we expect that by 2025 December, we should be able to generate not less than $2.5 million in net revenue. And this, once again, is really a truly conservative number.
So you're pre-revenue now, but within a little over a year, you're going to be making more than $2 million in net revenue. So, you know, that's amazing. Right. How much are you raising, and what do you expect to spend it on?
At this moment alone, we are seeking a minimum of $2 million from a collective of angel investors that we actively talking to. We seek to engage as well with VCs that are active not only in the fintech space, impacting, but also ultimately in the mining space. That would be ideal for us. And also, we are engaging quite actively with financial institutions, educating them about the need to be able to invest in this space. And I'm talking about banks, commercial banks, who, by the way, business model is always on being able to lend money and so forth. But where do we intend to spend that money? We've got three different areas where we intend to do that. Number one is to deploy this funding to small scale co-ops. Each equipment ranging at around $1 million, run it up, and with the potential to extract collectively 40 kilos of gold minimum every single month. That alone represents a whopping number of $3.2 million in extraction in revenue every single month. Number two, our timelines of execution is between 30 and 60 days just for the equipment. Why does it take 60 days? Because we need to be able to source it, ship it, deploy it on the ground, mount it, train the guys so they can actually understand exactly what it means and how to utilize this equipment. But ultimately, the next 30 days is for us to be able to execute the first extraction. So each mining site, and based on the equipment that we have already identified, will be able to yield production of minimum 20 kilos of gold per site. Now, that alone is an amazing number that we expect to be able to break even within 6 months of revenue. Within 6 months already, we are breaking even on a $2 million of revenue initially. And that presents an amazing opportunity for investors who are looking to engage with us in this exciting field.
So, am I understanding it correctly that once you get the machinery, you'll need about 3 months to start generating the revenue, and that
is correct.
You'll be profitable after 6 months?
That is correct. Exactly correct.
Wow. So these are wonderful numbers. How does this affect your bottom line at the end of the day?
Well, our bottom line, unlike many other fintech that often take a long time to be able to reach exactly our numbers that I'm just about to mention right now, we don't need 1 million users on our platform to generate these exact numbers. We just need one off-taker partner and 1 or 2 mining co-ops for us to generate a whopping bottom line of a net of $640,000 every single month. And not only do we reach break-even in 6 months, but to our early investors, we have the ability to give them a further 10% of our net bottom line over the next 2 years, representing an amazing opportunity never seen before because of the potential that mining represents in the world. Everybody today in the world is using a piece of commodity extracted by these miners that we are looking to help through our strategies at Exalo. By the way, you and I are talking right now. You know why? Because a miner somewhere has been able to extract some rare earth material and or some cobalt and lithium that allows you and I to be able to have this conversation right now.
I like it. So I also like that in the past you've talked about this marketplace. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, think about this. Have you ever imagined the Amazon of precious metals or the Amazon of any critical mineral activity? But not only the Amazon, but also the Amazon coupled with an ethical behavior to it, an ethical component to it. Well, this is exactly what Exalo is busy building. We're busy building an ethical sourcing marketplace that would not only allow us to vet onboard all of these suppliers, who, by the way, often don't really go by the rules in terms of international standards, but ultimately as well onboarding the buyers who are desperately looking for these mining contracts out of Africa, but don't want to come to Africa. Exalo becomes that bridge for them. And that's the piece of technology that we're currently busy building. I mean, technology doesn't have anything to do with the mining operational activities, but it enhances trustability and it gives a certain perspective from financial and banking behavior to these miners, but also to the buyers, so they can say, you know what, through Exalo, we have found exactly what we're looking for, and we're willing to do business back in Africa.
That's great. That's great because Africa needs that business and those miners need to be paid better.
Absolutely.
And how do you vet people so that that trust can be created?
Well, this is a great question. And thankfully to some groundwork that was done 5 years ago and ended up in December last year from the USAID, the African International Development, we're leveraging the notion of that particular framework for us to be able to understand exactly how these mining co-ops in Africa, particularly in the DRC, are being given the licenses to work, are operating on the ground, are far away from any rebel activities or any military activity. Those are the people that we are working with very closely and onboarding and training to make sure that they comply not only to our rules, but also to the desire we have to work with the international marketplace.
So then you vet both cooperatives and miners.
That is correct.
And to make sure that they're compliant, but also that they're legally authorized to do the mining activities, where they're doing it.
That is the ultimate condition. It's one of the things that buyers do require, and also local governments expect of us to be able to provide. Otherwise, today the world is talking about traceability, ethical sourcing, and we want to be able to make sure that the battery that is powering a Tesla car was ethically sourced. And we want to make sure that the Apple phone that is being built by Apple is ethically sourced and all these components. Without those digital passport traceability, we won't be able to provide better data. And we will be seen as all complicit to the bad behavior that drive the marketplace today. So we want to be able to change that. I know it's going to be a tough journey, but this for us is a lifetime journey. So we're here for a lifetime. We're not here for just a quick buck, but we're here to build a platform that will change this mining industry forever.
So, what else would you like to add that we haven't touched upon, but that are, it's important for people to know about?
Well, look, Liz, after being with you guys on this journey at Startup Bootcamp almost 6 months ago, it was proven to us that, not only do we work and are we working on a very exciting terrain, also difficult, but the support that you guys gave us proved that we're on the right path. And looking ahead, we aim to expand our impact through cutting edge technologies and strategic market expansion. We're exploring advancement, in technologies such as geospatial mapping, as well as blockchain technology to enhance transparency and efficiency in our operations. Additionally, we're planning to extend our reach into new regions in a couple of years. For example, Latin America is always in my mind, as well as Southeast Asia, particularly out of Singapore, putting a headquarter there is always in my mind. And we intend to be able to reach out to more artisanal mining communities with our innovative solutions. These steps, Liz, are designed for us to strengthen our platform's global presence and foster sustainable practices within the mining and also the agriculture industry, because these two somehow often go hand in hand because of the access to huge land and the potential to be able to build better communities for everybody else.
So let's talk about those building better communities, because I know that's really important to you. Can you tell a little bit more about, how you're doing that?
Well, certainly. I think we have a model that most guys today don't do at this point in time. So we've developed a model whereby when we give back, we're able to give about 30 to 50% of the extracted commodity, in this case, gold. We're also planning to set up a community fund to develop the schools and hospitals, which, by the way, should be the mission for all these measures, but most of these guys don't actually really do it. And when we extract, for example, 20 kilos of gold, between 7 and 10 kilos will go back to these communities. And instead of them looking for a market, we are the market for them. Not only do we give it to them at no cost, but we're the market for them. So we can give them access to the better prices and help contribute to developing the schools and health hospitals and many other facilities that these guys need to do their work better.
So are there any other markets you'd like to tell us about?
Well, Ghana is a market for us, for example. We have already engaged with a group of 5,000 miners who, by the way, are already doing the work. But they're desperately, once again, looking for equipment. This is the cry for every mining co-op in Africa. It's about, we need better machinery, we need access to global market, we need access to investors, we need access to funding. Axalio is that consolidated solution to give them exactly what they're looking for. And because we are in Africa and we are from Africa, we are busy building these relationships with them directly, and also engaging with other organizations, for example, such as TDB. TDB is a trade development bank out of Kenya. So we're talking to some folks out there for us to see exactly how our development and strategies to develop African infrastructure in the mining space is going to lead us to that particular development. And one thing I can actually mention my side as a closing remark, Liz, is that companies like, for example, Trafigura. Trafigura, I don't know if you know Trafigura, they're one of the major, a global, a larger commodities trader in the world. And just last year, Trafigura was able to generate over $400 billion in revenue. And they are specifically interested in the DRC. You know why? Because of cobalt and copper. And these two components are in higher demand. And what Trafigura is lacking today, often it is required to pre-finance these activities for us to extract copper and or cobalt. But if they don't know what mining co-ops is actually providing them with better legal authority and legal existence to invest into, you know what? They wouldn't be able to do that. So Axalio emerges as a tech-enabled fintech infrastructure with a whole banking protocol and due diligence and compliance, ethical behavior to provide to Trafigura with the mechanism they need to identify the mining co-op so they can deploy the funds, have a commercial arrangement with Axalio, and allow them over a period of time to extract the underlying commodity and serve the big giant like Tesla, Samsung, and Apple based on the ability there is to fulfill the global demand. So that's exactly what Axalio is on, an exciting journey, and I look forward to having everybody else who's looking to reach out to us so we can have these open conversations.
Well, that's wonderful. I mean, really, these are mind-boggling figures of 400 billion in revenue last year. Wow. It sounds like you, the co-ops that you're working with, the miners, you all have your hands full for the next few years. So hats off to you for seeing that there was a problem and really wanting to tackle that solution. Thanks for joining.
Absolutely. Thank you very much indeed. We appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to Breaking Banks Europe, a Provoke Media podcast in cooperation with Fintech Stage. Don't forget to tweet us out, shout out, or post to the team at Breaking Banks EU on Twitter. If there's something or someone you'd like to hear on our cast, let us know. See you next week on Breaking Banks Europe.